Hello there. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight we're going to stretch the sketch. We're going to stretch a single page sketch into a double page layout, and we're also going to create a card and a tag. We're going to be following the Snips by Kelly and the Snapshots single page Saturday sketch challenge. Now, my team and I started this sketch challenge back in May when the brand new annual catalog dropped. Inside the brand new catalog were some of the same lovely tag and card sketches, but they now had scrapbook page sketches. So we divided out the cards, the tags, and the scrapbook layouts into months, and we've been completing one sketch challenge every month since May, and we're already up to October. There were 8 sketches divided total. So we have one more next month, but we're going to feature October tonight. And it was actually supposed to be out the first Saturday of the month. And so I do apologize that I'm late out of the gate. It's been crazy. So here is the layout, the tag, and the card that we're going to be creating this evening. Now the sketch is a great jumping off point. It shows some vertical paper piece and some vertical photos. Now already I'm changing it up a little bit because I'm definitely going to be doing some paper layering. I want to use a 4x6 photo on the left side, which means I can stretch the sketch to the left and then maybe stay a little more true to the sketch on the right. I'm going to be using 3x4 vertical photos. Now these photos are of a weekend at the Pumpkin Festival, or the annual Holman Acres Pumpkin Fest that is a tradition, and I have way more than 3 photos, so of course I'm going to be using flip-flaps. I'm either going to turn the sketch on its side, or I'm going to actually just add paper layering under that. So we're going to be using the gorgeous Autumn Toile Collection. I've used this collection in the past. These are the papers that I have left over from the Autumn Toile Collection, and these are 2 of the stamp sets that come with that sweet collection, along with some gorgeous dots and some weave trim. There's also a little bit of the earthy tones metallic papers there. So I've used the Amber Autumn and the Autumn Trees in previous layouts. Both of these stamp and die sets come in the Autumn Toile Sweet Collection. I also have a few little odds and ends left. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them or not, but there's a few little flourish pieces from beautiful motifs. There's some of the little bits and pieces that are from those same stamp and dies that come from the Autumn Toile Suite. So I've actually created, I think, 3 layouts with this collection so far. So my most recent here was this hexagon layout. I love how that turned out. I added some of the beautiful motif flourishes in there, and I actually added some words from the seasonal words. I always get that wrong. Words for the Season, that's where the title came from. Really love that one. That was documenting a hike in Oregon. I also created Blue Jean Kid, where I used more of the Amber Autumn dyes, more pumpkins. And then I created this one where I used more of the Autumn Trees. So it was lovely that both Autumn Trees and Amber Autumn came with this collection. I even made a really large hidden journal spot on that one, and I've been able to feature either the pumpkins or the trees or both. So I'm going to focus a little bit more tonight on the pumpkins because this was, of course, a pumpkin patch or a pumpkin festival with all kinds of activities, hay rides and corn maze and all kinds of things. But as always with my family, I have a hodgepodge. So there were actually 2 days of the Harvest Fest. So I had one day with my grandson, Waylon James, where we did the face painting and we did all the things. And then I had another day with my husband and our grown kids and their families after Waylon James's birthday party. So none of them really, they all go together, but none of them really create a single theme. So I thought what I would do is is sort of get a theme together with the top photos and then put all of the other photos layered behind. Now, of course, the photo that's upside down is my husband, who is not a social media person, so his will remain upside down and you can use your imagination. I say he's very handsome, so you can just use your imagination on what he might look like in that photo. So I'm not going to put you through it, but I'm going to ink all the edges of all the things because this is an outdoor layout with pecan pie. Now, basic beige really goes with this collection, so you could ink with basic beige, but I'm a pecan pie girl and it's my favorite and I'm not going to apologize. So now I have my flip-flaps together. If you're not familiar with flip-flaps, you can get extra photo opportunities, and there's an adhesive strip that you can add either to the top of your page protector or inside. You can either put a slit in your page protector or you can actually add the flip-flaps to the top. There's a left side opening, a top opening, or a right side opening for most of the sizes of the flip-flaps. So of course we're going to place the photos that are going to be on the bottom on the photo mats, because the photos that are going to show on the top are going to be within the inside of the flip-flaps. Now I'm going to go ahead and put mine together. It's a little bit tricky on camera, but I'm going to go ahead and put mine together so you can see that. Sometimes I don't put them together on camera because then you have to deal with the glare of the flip-flaps for the remainder of the video. I don't think it's going to be too bad, but I'm going to actually have to straighten them out a little bit. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the fold over with the camera in between, but they're typically very easy to do. You're going to line up the photo within the flip-flap with the photo that's on the photo mat so that the flip-flap photo looks like it has the photo mat coming out from underneath, and then you can place those anywhere that you want on your layout. So instead of 4 photos total, now I have 4 times 3 and 3 times 3. So 1, 2, 3, 12, 15 photos on one layout. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12 photos. I can't add. So 12 photos on one layout. So now let's deal with the sketch. It's a great jumping off point, but I'm definitely going to add some layers. I'm definitely going to switch things around just a little bit. I do see having that top and bottom. I don't have to have a whole piece because I want a paper layer in there. So I'm going to use the gorgeous, gorgeous pumpkin paper from Autumn Toile. And we have the pumpkin paper is 4 by 10 3/4, and then the brown papers we have 3 by 8 and 3.5 by 8 respectively, and it's going to duplicate on the right page. What we make for the left, we're going to use on the right. The diamond pattern is 2 by 11 3/4, dovetailed on both ends. And then I cut a 4 by 4 square of the early espresso graph and cut it on a diagonal. So now we're going to be doing the same exact thing for the right page. I'm going to add a couple other little strips. I'm not sure if I'm going to center the photo or offset the photo. Probably offset it a little bit to give me a nice big L for a big pumpkin patch on the lower left. That'll be appropriate. Now, I think that I love the sketch that it has that base block in it, but I think there's plenty of room at the bottom of the base block to be able to add some banners. So I've cut some additional pattern paper pieces, 2 additional pattern paper pieces, and 1 early espresso cardstock piece at 2.5 by 3.5, and I'm going to make really wide banners on those. And that way I can layer those over the top of each other. I have a 1/4 inch strip here that's going to go almost all the way. I actually make it a 1/4 by 12, and then I just snip it after I've laid it over the banner so it has the same angle as the banner, and we'll be doing that a little bit later in the video. Right now I have some of the earthen tone metallics in there. I don't end up using it. It's so beautiful, but I don't end up using it for that that particular strip. It was a little tough for me to sort out. So now that I have dry placement on the left, I kind of want to get dry placement on the right and think a little bit about how to toggle the photos. So if we look at the original sketch, one photo is toggled a little bit over the other, which I do love, but of course I was stretching my photos. And so now that I have them in flip-flaps, they're going to be a little bit too difficult to toggle. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to notch at the center of the 3.5-inch piece right in the middle, cut up the sides and create a dovetailed banner there so that I can use that as the pattern and create all of the banners out of one. And by just using that as a pattern, I'm also going to cut a piece of basic beige, actually very vanilla, and I'm going to cut that 1/4 inch smaller. So instead of 2.5 by 3.5, it's going to be 2.25 by 3.25. And then how I do this is I actually lay it over, move it down just a little bit, and use the bottom so that the banners match. And then I can move those up, and then I can use that as a little journal spot. Of course, I inked all the edges of all the pattern paper pieces, the very vanilla piece, all the pieces with pecan pie to give that a little bit of a smoky flavor and an outdoor vibe. So we really, really love going to Holman Acres every year. There's so many things for the kids to do. There's a corn pit, there's pumpkin bowling, there's a basketball shoot into an old harvester, there's donkeys to pet and horses to pet and goats to pet. There's a little spooky I Spy house and a bouncy house and hay ride and, oh my gosh, a corn maze, face painting. There's all kinds of vendors and food and foodie trucks, and we really, really love it. It's a local thing that we can do. And I had this hodgepodge of photos. I normally am a little better about saying, okay, everybody get into the pumpkin patch or get in front of the pumpkin patch and take really focal photos in front of the pumpkin patch. But everybody was running all over. It was after Waylon James's 4th birthday party. So it's a hodgepodge of photos, but I definitely wanted to document the day. So now I'm deciding here if I want to use corners on all 4 corners. I do decide just to do 2 corners on the left and 2 corners on the right. And I love this. I just love the base of this already. It's so rich and I've really, really loved. I feel like Autumn Toile was a little understated when I first looked at it and all of the neutrals. It's like, my goodness, what am I going to do with all of those neutrals? And I have absolutely fallen in love with it. I've done so much with it and I really love it. So now I love the base pieces. I see I don't have my stripe strip on the right page, but I discover that here in a minute. But because of my journaling, I have to do a little bit of toggling. I have to figure out if I'm going to move my journal piece or if I'm going to move my photos or if I'm going to move some things that are on the right page to the left page, and I end up getting it to work out by toggling the photos, and it still leaves me a little bit of space for some beautiful pumpkin clusters. So I'm not going to do a ton of over-the-top work here. I want to use the stamps and the dies that come in the set. I'm going to add a couple other little things that are new that you may not have seen before. I do decide to toggle this right photo just a little off center so that I can have a big pumpkin patch like an L and curve a little pumpkin patch around using the Amber Autumn pumpkins and the acorns, and we're going to do a little bit of markering and stamping of some of those, and we'll use a little bit of the flourishes that I used on the last layout. I'll link all those layouts in the description. I'll also link all of my team members' videos in the description as well who are following along with these sketches. So now I'm just sort of sorting out where do I want my clusters and how can I make my visual triangle. Then I discover that strip is missing. So I'm going to add that strip in and do a little bit of a snip on the edges to make sure that those angled pieces match. And then we can start working on the fun part. We can start working on embellishing. So I've offset a few things that if you're using the rule of thirds, I have several of the photos offset offset into the intersection of the rule of thirds if you're thinking of a tic-tac-toe grid. I just did a video on 10 different embellishment tips, and that's one of the things that I talked about in the video. So now I'm using the words for the season, and I'm just going to say autumn. In one of my last autumn toile layouts, I said, let's see, autumn wishes. And then in another one of my autumn toile layouts, I said happy autumn. Now in this one, I'm simply going to say autumn and let the photos do the talking. And so I'm going to use my my tweezers and my fine precision glue tip, fine precision glue, and that works great with little letters like this. You could use any title that you wanted. You could break out some of your alpha dies and it would work great. Now we're going to whiz through some of the stamping here just because I don't need to torture you. I do make way more pumpkins than we need, although I do use quite a few of these because I really want the pumpkin patch to look full. So I use quite a few of the acorns, but one of the reasons of the acorns, the leaves, and the pumpkins, but one of the reasons I stamp so many is there's always some mulligans. So you can see I have a couple mulligans here that didn't stamp well. And then I also love having some extra. Plus, if you stay tuned to the end of the video, we're going to make a really beautiful tag and a card out of this same set. So, and also you'll see a little bit of new that's coming soon in our online exclusives drop in November, if you stay tuned to the end. So now we're going to do some quick markering. I'm not going to use a lot of techniques, but I'll link in the description a previous video where I did this same technique. We're going to come into the natural lines on the pumpkins with dark Cajun craze. We're going to come in and make some little circular motions around those areas with light Cajun craze. Then we're going to come back in over the whole top with the brush tip of pumpkin pie. And that's going to make it look really, really rich. You're going to see some depth in those. We're actually going to do the leaves in exactly the same way. And then the acorns we're going to do in the same way, except we're going to use like light and dark pecan pie. We're going to use a couple other colors here. We're going to use granny apple green on all of the larger pumpkin leaves. And then we're going to use light old olive on the remaining leaves. And we're going to use daffodil delight on the corn. We'll use a little pecan pie on the pumpkin stems. And then again, with the leaves and the acorns, we're going to do the leaves in the exact same way as we did the pumpkins. And we're going to do the acorns using the same technique with dark pecan pie on all the natural shading of the acorns, and then light pecan pie on the rest to smooth it all over. I did use a little bit of the blending marker to just kind of fade out a little bit of those acorns so that they didn't look so dark and that they were faded just a little bit. Then we'll go over to the die cutter and we'll cut all of those out, and we're going to use those in combination with some of the other dies that come in the Amber Autumn and the Autumn Trees set that come with the Autumn Toile Suite collection. So typically our Suites collection come with DSP, 1 or 2 stamp or die sets. Usually there's a little bit of ribbon, there might be some bling, and so they're a really great set to have. And often not often, but always when you purchase things in a suite or a bundle, they are reduced by 10%. So you get a discount on those. Okay, so we're still working through those leaves. I've already told you those colors. We're doing old olive. Some of those leaves are really, really tiny. And so the pumpkin I didn't finish because I'm going to do that one the same way as the other pumpkin. Now we get to have so much fun with those. You can see some flourishes from beautiful motifs that are left over from my last layout. You can also see a small leaf and a little sprig that I did in Mossy Meadow and Early Espresso. And again, those are from the sets that come right out of the Autumn Toile Suite collection. And I'm going to do some strategic layering here. It seems like, why are you using the same pumpkin icon over and over? But I'm using it and having different parts of it to show to make it look way more full like a pumpkin patch without having to do a bunch of other die cutting and coloring. I'm going to use those same pumpkins at least 3 times in that cluster, and then I'm going to add to that some of those sprigs from Beautiful Motifs that are cut in Pecan Pie and Mossy Meadow, and then the Mossy Meadow leaves and the early espresso sprigs that come out of the Amber Autumn and the Autumn trees, and that's going to make that look so full. I think we'll add some of the woven textured ribbon to that in just a little bit, but we'll make like a medium and a small cluster as well. So we have a super large cluster on the left, we'll do kind of a medium cluster on the right, and then we'll do a little small cluster here of 2 of those acorn leaves in the upper right. And that's going to draw our eye across those banners, all the way across all the photos, and then up to the corner. And then I think we'll grab a little punch here. We have this cute little punch. I punched it out twice, one with basic beige and one with pumpkin pie or Cajun Craze. I've inked all the edges, and I'm going to take the sentiment from the Amber Autumn Stampin' Die set that says, "Blessed to have you in my life." I think that's appropriate with the photo of all of us on the hayride. So it's not all of my family, but it's 4 of my grandkids, and then my son and his wife and her parent, her mother and grandmother and friend, and then it's myself and my daughter and her 3 girls. And so I'm definitely blessed to have all of them in my life, and I can add a couple leftover sprigs that I cut off of the original sprigs from Beautiful Motifs that I put in the pumpkin patch there. And I'm just sort of piecing together some of that woven trim. It's so pretty. It's so delicate. I've folded it in half and I've added it to those clusters to add some really fun fall texture to those clusters. And then no layout is complete, of course, without the bling. And we have the streaked dots, which look wooden, and I've been in love with them. In fact, I think I have 3 packages of them. I'm kind of hoarding them because I really, really love them. So I'm getting happy. I really love how this layout turned out. I love where stretching the sketch ended up. We were able to stay pretty true to the sketch on the right page, but just adding some more paper layers and some embellishing, and then we were able to stretch the sketch over to the left and still use a little bit of that sketch, but move it in a horizontal way with the photo. I'm really happy with that. Let's take a whole swoop and look at all of both pages here and all of it in its glory. And then we're going to move right into the card and the tag. They won't be long ones, and they're so worth a look. They're so beautiful, and you're going to get to see some new product in that. And again, I'll link in the description all of the products that I used on the scrapbook layout, the card, and the tag. And then I'll also link in the description the previous Autumn Toile videos. And I will also link in the description all of the Snapshot downline team who created videos as well and their take on these same sketches. Now let's get ready and regather ourselves up. You're going to get to see a sneak peek here. Let's do a quick little tag first, and you're seeing a brand new die set. It actually has a coordinating stamp set that I'm not showing you yet, but it's a brand new die set that I think you're going to love. Creative Haven dies, and I'm actually going to use the oval in that and stay a little bit true to the sketch. I'm going to use some leftover pumpkins from the layout, and I'm going to use some leftover Beautiful Motifs from the layout, and we'll use that Amber Autumn stamp again. But these Creative Haven dies have all of these banners and tags, and they have these cute little tag tops that cut either the dash line or the dot line in it, and they also have some fun flourishes as well. And so there's some really, really cute stamps that fit right inside these dies that you're going to love, that are going to go live in November. But I actually just cut 4 of the rounded shape or the arch-shaped die, and I used the slotted tag top, and I cut 4 of those out of the Autumn Toile paper and some of the earth and tone metallics, as well as a very vanilla. So I cut all 4 of them the same size, added the pumpkin to the front, and added a little sprig to the front, ran the weave ribbon, I think it's called irregular weave trim, through that, took another little small piece to tie a knot, and then I'll trim all of those on an angle, and then I added a little tiny sentiment across just in Early Espresso, Grateful for You, from those Amber Autumn stamps again that come right in the Autumn Toile suite. And it's so cute, it's so fast, and it's so elegant. It's just so lovely. I love that. Now, looking at the card, anything goes. It's a circle, right? And I'm going to change that up, and I'm going to make that into a rounded circle, or I don't know if you can even call it a circle. I already pulled it out. It's an oval, but not really an oval. It's a rounded, what do you call that? I don't know what it is. A rectangle that's rounded, or an oval that's not really a complete oval. I guess it's an oval. I don't know. You call it what you want to call it, or you can correct me in the comments. But I'm going to cut up. So I cut a piece of basic beige at 4 5 1/4. I cut a piece of that beautiful Early Espresso graph, and then I cut a small piece of the pumpkin pattern paper of the pumpkin patch in the background that I want to peek through that little oval piece from the Creative Haven die. Now, I should have cut the basic beige piece at the same time and the Cajun Craze piece, because I really want Cajun Craze up at the top, but I want to have a little transition. And just like we added the banners to the scrapbook layout, I want to add the banners to the bottom of the card. So that top Cajun Craze part ends up being 3 1/2 by 2 1/4. And then I put a little transition piece in there with the graph paper, which is 3/4 by 4. And then I did each of the banners at about 1 3/4 inch. The longest one is the fox paper, which is 1 3/4 also. The other 2 I created at the same size, but I trimmed them down quite a bit. And we can add those banners to the page. I really want the fox to show. I want you to be able to see the whole fox in that little bitty pattern paper piece. And then I'm going to add a few sprigs that come from the Creative Haven dies that I cut out of the earth and tone metallics, and then we'll add a little bit of woven, the woven irregular weave trim to that as well. Now I'm going to pull out the hexagon punch because I need a sentiment, and I don't always like just making a plain flat sentiment. So I'm going to stamp thanks from that same Amber Autumn stamp set on the bottom of the hexagon there. And I have to take a couple runs at it because I mess up a little bit. And then I'm going to ink the edges there. And then we're going to trim that down. And then we can put that on the Early Espresso graph piece. And then we can also add some little bits of the twine. I keep calling it twine, irregular weave trim. I'm trying to call it woven something. I'm trying to call it twine. It's beautiful, whatever it is, the pretty trim. So we're going to use that pretty trim for texture. And then we have 2 of those sprigs that I love, the sprigs from the Creative Haven dies. And then we're going to add that thanks to the top of that, and by adding the foam dots to the underside of the thanks, it holds in place those sprigs and that woven twine. And then all we have left to finish that off are the streaked dots. I love that. We're going to put foam tape on the back and pop that up over the little pumpkin and corn harvest scene. And I love, love, love just that little scene peeking through. That little pumpkin paper is really some of my all-time favorite paper of all time. And just having that little scene peek through is so fun. So now I feel like we were true to the card sketch. We were true to the tag sketch. I'm super happy with the layout, and we are now caught up with Single Page Saturday. I hope you loved all three projects. I hope you'll check out the other ladies' projects. If you want a copy of Single Page Saturday Sketch, I'll post a PDF in the description. Hit like, subscribe, the notifications bell, and come back soon for more right here on Snips by Kelly.